Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
We're here a day late this week, guys. Life gets in the way every now and again. We do try and be as consistent as possible, but better late than never, as they say. Alex, how are you?
I'm good. I actually bought some Funkos and got some cool stuff to show off.
Oh, let's have a look.
We got this great Blue Beetle Funko.
Oh, nice.
Movie coming out.
He looks great. Is he on a stand?
No, he's actually not on a stand. He's like kneeling, but got the little arm cannon. He's glow in the dark too. And I actually got something else too with this out too. So I got the Marvel Collector's Core box for the Marvels movie. So it came with this cool pin.
Little flirkin.
Little sticker there.
Nice.
Got a cool t-shirt, and it came with two cool Funkos, which was this Captain Marvel.
Oh, nice.
You can really see that well, but yeah.
And nice fire coming around her face, yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then another of this Flurkin.
Oh, wow.
With a bunch of baby Flurkins, so it's kind of cool, Boots with the little babies, so thought that was kind of neat. And of course, the shirt that comes with it too. It's got, I don't know if you can really see what's on it, but
yeah, it's got the three Marvels on it, yeah.
So pretty cool, and something kind of cool coming out. So X-Men 97 will be the next one for the Marvel Collector's Core. So
oh, nice.
I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm assuming that there'll be some Funkos for that coming here soon. So
excellent, a new generation of X-Men Funkos. Nice. I always quite like the X-Men Funkos. So part of my favorite part of my collection is the 80-year X-Men First Class. So you've got Iceman, Beast, Cyclops,
Angel, and Marvel Girl. Yeah, it's really cool. And then I've got a Professor X to go with them as well. But I think that's a really cool little set of little Funkos there. Yeah, really like. You can't beat those classic costumes. I feel like on those Funkos, there's just something cool about the classic, like original X-Men costumes. I don't know why, but
I think there's something cool about the classic original anything costumes.
Well, that's true.
There's so much. Don't get me wrong. I like new. Whether we're talking about Funkos or whether we're talking about live action or cartoons or whatever. I do kind of like the new sort of like combat style stuff sometimes. But the older stuff has got a certain class about it that you just can't beat.
Definitely.
Jarian, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Have some anticipation for some new Marvel Lego stuff that drops tomorrow. A lot of new sets, even including the A-Team team up at during an Endgame against Thanos. So you have that one. There's the Statue of Liberty one from No Way Home. You can pre-order the Marvel set. But the coolest thing that's coming out, it looks like they're doing their second wave of Marvel collectible minifigures. And it looks like they're Phase 4 and 5 characters, along with some X-Men 97 characters. So Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Mr. Knight, Moon Knight's going to be in the set. You're going to have Storm, Wolverine, and Beast in the set. Echo's in the set. So that's a pretty cool set that's coming out. The only thing they changed, though, there's no more bags. They're in boxes, so you can't feel the bags hunting for stuff anymore. So you got to play the whole buy the box game, but I'll probably just buy the complete set. So looking forward to wasting some money on more Marvel Legos.
More money. It's only money.
Using money on my using money. There's a great thing. There's Legoland in Windsor over here in England on the west side of London, and at the wall behind on the hotel, they've just got a wall of Lego dots, and on them is all the little minifigures. There's like thousands of minifigures attached to the wall behind them. It's great. Yeah, you look and you go, oh, look, there's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and there's like there's Benny the Spaceman, and there's like Wolverine or whatever. You just keep going, they're all over the place.
Nice.
So I've not done anything marvelous this week, but I was flicking the other night through the TV board, and a episode of Game of Thrones came And I was like, man, it was like in season 5 when it was on fire in season 5, in my opinion. I think it was so good. And it was like Battle of the Bastards or one of those episodes. And I was like, man, this was such a cool show. Like, I absolutely love this. I'm going to start rewatching it, which is exactly what I've started doing. So I'm halfway through season 2 of Game of Thrones again for the second time. And it is really cool. And I think I said this before. I love it. I said this about Dune the other week, didn't I? About creating a lore and a history. And I really loved that. I mean, I'm just getting completely suckered in. I think I even had a dream the other night that I was in Westeros. And I was in Game of Thrones. But I'm really getting sort of drawn into that whole world and all the sort of fantasy and history that goes with it. So enjoying watching that for the second time.
I still need to watch that. I haven't watched any of Game of Thrones stuff. It's on my list, along with Lost still. I just got to find some time and just power through it.
Lost is so good. And I don't know how I did this, but I managed to watch like all of season 1 of Game of Thrones, and then I ended up watching like most of season 6. So I've missed everything in between. And honestly, like I'm like, fine for me. Like
you missed all the good bit.
Yeah, I guess that's what they say.
Yeah, see, 3, 4, and 5, in my opinion, was spot on. 6 was okay. 7, yeah, and then 8. You know, you kind of got to finish watching it by that point. You know. But you missed a good bit. Like I say, 3, 4, and 5 for me was fantastic. 6 was good as well.
Looks like we have it from the chat here, from the Facebook chat. Sorry so late. You're not late. We just started, so good timing. But looking forward to read reviews about the new Captain America Shield set by Lego. Yep, I'll be probably ordering that one too. And then they have the Spider-Man picture similar to the Tony Stark one, but it's only one. You don't have the 3 that combined right now. It's just the one. So, yeah. More backlog of building stuff. But speaking of new stuff, I've been hearing some really good news about that show They Clone Tyrone on Netflix. You know, starring Tiana Paris, who plays Monica Rambeau, Jimmy Fox, of course, Electro, and John Boyega from the Star Wars side of things. I've been hearing a lot of good things about that, and that's on my list too as well. Maybe this weekend, because it's supposed to be really hot here after all these storms again. I'll sit down and maybe watch that, see if my wife wants to watch that one.
Yeah, that does look really cool. Actually, I caught the trailer for it the other day. It looks different. Definitely looks different. There's a grass gritty feel about it, but little bit tongue in cheek as well. So yeah, I might give that one a go. We've got a packed episode today. We've got to talk about Secret Invasion finale. We've got to talk about that new Loki trailer that dropped today, and then we've got any other news that we've got to cover off. So, shall we start with the obvious? Should we start with Secret Invasion?
Yeah, I got some news first. Let's talk about the big twist from Secret Invasion news. So director Ali Salim on the Rhodey twist. A lot of people have asked about definitely when did Rhodey, question mark. I think his leg's not working in the end of episode 6, and him being in the hospital gown points to Captain America's Civil War. And from there, it doesn't have to be definitive, or is it more fun for the audience to go back and revisit every Rhodey moment, and look at it with a different lens? Now they think, oh, he might have been a Skrull there, and then make the decision for themselves, or it'll be answered in Armor Wars. So basically what he's saying is that's his plan from the start, was to make Rhodey a Skrull and have Rhodey be a Skrull for a while now in MCU, but it sounds like he's leaving that door open in case Feige wants to change the future and keep it vague. So it does seem like we might get a definite answer in Armor Wars. Hope we get some kind of flashback, maybe even that, he said that they knew about Skrulls for 15 years in the government. Maybe they were working together and that Skrull finally went rogue, maybe even, once the whole invasion started. So who knows what was going to happen there. But what are you guys' thoughts on the timeline with Rhodey and his Skrull switch out?
I feel like it's a... Go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say, I think it's disappointing that we didn't actually get any actual confirmation of when that happened. Yeah, okay, we got the gown, but even the director's just come out and he's given us he's given us a definitive make your own mind up until we tell you otherwise. That's what he's given us. Because he's gone, he's got a gown on and his legs aren't working. Well, his legs aren't working maybe because they've atrophied because he's been in there for a long time. I don't know. But he's not really given us anything definitive there. And I think that's a shame, because now we've just got to wait again for a project that hasn't at the moment got a date on it, has it?
No, but I have some director and writer room news when we talk about the news for it. So
okay, but in regards to what I hope and what I think are two different things. I hope that he hasn't been a Skrull since Civil War, because I think that there's lots of moments, you know, the Mr. Stank moment. I mean, why would a Skrull, a very, very new Skrull, make that joke? Unless I think somebody says they kind of get some memories and things like that. You know, the whole hot tub time machine, that thing, that back and forward in with Clint, you know, that was great in Endgame.
Thanos, baby Thanos.
Yeah, yeah, that was great. Yeah, there's lots of little moments that I think that don't fit. Do you know what I mean? They just don't seem to fit for me. What would be really, really cool, and I think Don Cheadle will be able to play it really well, is being told that Tony's dead and him not know it. So
Morgan, even.
Yeah, so I kind of like that idea, but I don't like it for all those other reasons, you know? But yeah, I don't know. And what I think is that they probably are going to do that. I think that gown was probably on purpose. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if they were going to explain this, they completely missed the boat here. Like, it should have been explained in this show as well as Ross, because we've got this other similar issue with Ross, where Ross was apparently taken when we just saw him get, like, broken out by the Wakandans at the end of, you know, the second Black Panther movie. So it's like, it makes you really start to wonder. It's like, you know, at the end of Wakanda Forever, when he's taken, like, you know, he wakes up at the end of this with Rhodey sitting next to him, and he is like, Rhodey, like, you're here, you know, like, and it's one of those weird things where, like, Rhodey's obviously been out for a while. I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like, I didn't expect that scroll to talk about DDTing Nick Fury from the top rope, you know. It's a wrestling term, but I was like, all right, whatever. But, like, he did, and it's like one of those things where it's like, if you actually go, like, and you look at some of the things he's done, it's definitely odd. I feel like maybe it goes back to Civil War, maybe Infinity War. At some point, like, I would assume that when Rhodey probably, like, couldn't use his legs that well, he became maybe an easier target. Maybe, you know, maybe he was gone, maybe he got switched out when he was in the hospital. Who knows? You know, there's definitely so much they could have done there. And I think that if they do kind of allow this whole thing, like the Mr. Stank line and a lot of these, like, interesting lines that he's had, to just be chalked up to a Skrull, it almost feels like we've been cheated kind of out of Rhodey for all this time.
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. They're kind of like, they're not real moments anymore, are they? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the Facebook chat here, Scrody is really up on his slang. So think about a couple things here. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and the Civil War thing kind of makes sense, because think what we've seen Rhodey up until the Civil War when they were in that main fight, how military, how he was, you know, as Don Cheadle's been in Rhodey in the MCU. And then, you know, even when he arrested, you know, Cap and came in there with the Black Panther and that whole scene about, you know, congratulations, Cap, you're a criminal. Think how military, how following orders he was. But then kind of, yes, we had some Rhodey jokes over time, you know, boom, you looking for this, and, you know, other things with him and Tony, the banter back and forth. But even when Tony was in Iron Man 2, was all out of it and this and that, and the whole fight scene, that kind of stuff, it just kind of makes sense how his shift in tone has changed, because after that, the Tony Stank joke, but then think about it in Infinity War, right? When he's talking to Ross and they come in and Ross like arrests him, he's like swipes him away, he goes, that's a court-martial. It seems, if you think about it, because I went back and watched some different scenes to kind of look at some things too, and you kind of seen the tone shift of Rhodey since then. And then the whole thing with him catching up on the movies, that kind of stuff, you know, he could have been doing that for research. You know, again, they had those machines where they could have seen some of the memories. Also, in Endgame in the beginning, he was flying all over the world looking for Clint, following the aftermath. So when you're flying in the Iron Man suit, what are you going to do? It's an in-flight movie kind of thing, you know? So I can see where some of it makes sense. Also, too, the one thing I noticed, too, is as he's coming out and they're carrying him, he's up at the sky. At that moment, he's thinking Tony's going to come flying down to save him. Kind of similar to he came down and saved Tony from the desert in Iron Man 1. So there was kind of some parallels there, too. And it's amazing to see where once he finds out that, you know, Tony's gone, Tony was married, Tony had a daughter, that's going to be even more impact in Armor Wars. But I think they missed like a good post-credit scene of him kind of getting caught up and kind of saying that line, now I'm pissed, and then cutting off to like that and then going in. As far as Ross, I went back and I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, that, you know, I was talking to my wife, I was like, he looks kind of familiar to what the shirt he was wearing in Wakanda Forever when he's in the house with Val and Val arrests him. And then she's talking about, oh, I love to get my hands on vibranium, this and that, and the way she was talking. And I think right then when he got arrested, that's when Ross was switched out in Wakanda Forever. So the Ross that we saw that got saved by Okoye in the Midnight Angel gear in the van, that had to be Skrull Ross there, because the same shirt he was wearing when he got arrested is the same shirt he had on in Secret Invasion when he was freed. So it's almost, to me, it's like, okay, are they setting up Val to be a Skrull? You know, we heard the Emperor's Colony mentioned. We never saw them. You know, we don't know if Queen Verinki is around at all. So it almost seems like, you know, is Val a Skrull? And there's going to be a reveal later on, whether it's in Brave New World, Thunderbolts, or in Armor Wars, where we see her get exposed as a Skrull. Because we saw with Guy at the very end when her and Sonya hooked up, there's still plenty of Skrull imposters out there. The invasion is not over.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest issue for me on Ross was at the beginning of this show, it feels kind of convoluted because he's talking to Maria Hill on the phone. And it's like, hey, it's like this Ross seems like he's been working with Maria Hill. I mean, they could have just had that scene where he could have just said, hey, I'll get this information to Fury and try and leave with it. And we never really needed him to contact Maria Hill or Nick Fury for that matter. He could have just been a Skrull, and it could have just been somebody impersonating him, not made that phone call. But I mean, it's just like, it's like a weird step from the beginning of this show from Wakanda Forever. It's like we miss so much, and I just want to know what's in the middle, you know? Like,
there should have been a bridge of how he got back in touch with Fury and with Maria Hill and that kind of stuff. So
why he's not being pursued, you know?
Yeah, and why he's not still in Wakanda. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've said this before about other projects and any other movies, not just Marvel or superhero movies, but a few lines of exposition could go a long way.
Definitely.
You know, he could have just said something simple as, you know, I was really fortunate when I got rescued that Nick Fury took me in, or something like that. And then I just made that line up on the spot. But he just, that in itself just gives a little bit of background for you to kind of go, oh, okay, I understand now why he's working with these people.
From the Facebook chat here, wasn't Talos the one posing as Ross episode 1? No, Talos was the one chasing him. The one that when he fell off the roof and he fell down and Ringo pulled up in the car, Talos was the one that walked up and talked to Maria Hill. So no, Talos was not impersonating Ross in episode 1.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I feel like they could have done this very easily. Like, we have the President of the United States in this. He could have just pardoned Ross, and we could have just, like, that could have been a throwaway line. Ross could have just been like, oh, you know, after being pardoned by the President, like, for everything that happened, you know, in Wakanda Forever, essentially, like, boom, like, you know.
Yeah.
And, like, it could be one of those things where they could just chalk it up to that and move on, and we, you know, wouldn't even have to think too much about it. Be like, okay, it's clean, like, moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, makes sense.
Yeah, that's it.
Ali Salim also addressed reviews. He said, I don't read the reviews. With all due respect, for me, I view all the storytelling work I do as a dialogue with an audience. When the show is finished and put up on the screen, that's my half of the dialogue, and the audience then starts their half of the response to it. I think that's the valuable, but I don't know how to answer the question. I don't feel bad about mixed reviews. If you had unanimously good reviews, every movie would gross $10 trillion, right? Projects resonate with different people at different times for different reasons, and Marvel is very devoted, even rabid fan base who have expectations, and when their expectations aren't fulfilled, they move in another direction. They give it a thumbs down. He said, I don't know. It is our job to fulfill their expectations or to tell the story that we're telling. So it's a tricky thing. I would love if everybody loved it, but I also don't have that expectation myself. So I feel great about the response to it. He also talked about season 2. I don't know anything about season 2. I think there's some great threads that could be run down, but if there's a season 2, I have no idea. He also talked about Feige's influence. He said it starts with Kevin Feige. He says we're going to have a Super Skrull fight and all the superpowers are fair game. I think it's actually best communicated in the moment where Gravik takes the vial from Fury and puts it in the computer for analysis. We see, it's all superpowers scrolling up there, which I have a comment about that because there's two things that don't add up in that scene. Or the way they explained it. Then he talked about which powers they would use. He said that honestly, it's a discussion of paper, scissors, rock. What superpower from Gaia is going to dominate a superpower from Gravik? Paper, scissors, rock. What superpower from Gravik is going to dominate Gaia momentarily? It's also a little bit of choreography and visual elegance or beauty, just making it work. There were some transitions from a superpower to another superpower that made sense in the story that just didn't look good. So we shifted the story to accommodate the choreography. So do you want to talk about the powers?
Yeah, let's talk about the Harvest, because I think the Harvest was a bit of a mess in this show. I mean, but besides the fact that like it's got the DNA of all these, you know, different humans that I assume are probably not the same blood type, but it's got all this alien DNA that's also mixed in there that, you know, seems all compact. I mean, like we had Ghost, Captain America, Corvus Glaive, Thanos, Outriders, Proxima Midnight, Captain Marvel, Abomination, Mantis, Cull Obsidian, Drax, Korg, Ebony Maw, Frostbeast, Hulk, Chitauri, Valkyrie, Thor, Gamora, Groot's powers, and Winter Soldier, and good.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, and we also had Extremis that they had already had in, you know, but like they double dipped on a couple of these powers when they put them back in the machine, which I thought was very interesting too.
Yeah, and so what stands out to me, the Extremis makes sense, right? Because we saw Extremis out there in the wild post in-game, right, in Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. The ones that didn't make sense, though, is Ghost Powers and Abomination. They weren't, as far as we know, they weren't in the final ballot in-game, which means they were collecting DNA for years. And then it goes back to Rhodey saying, we know about Skrulls for 15 years, so we don't get any definition for that, which comes to a comment here from the Facebook chat. A few lines of exposition would go a long way. I say this all the time, so true. Marvel does this sometimes, and it's a little frustrating. And that the thing with Ghost and Abomination powers, where do they come from?
For me, I think the biggest issue with Hulk and Abomination was this show contradicted itself when it said the Skrulls like are radiation resistant, yet they have gamma irradiated blood. I cannot talk. I'm sorry. Like that is basically like a part of them now that gives them the Hulk and Abomination's powers. And I was like, does that not contradict like, you know, the whole like they're tolerant to radiation? I mean, like there's literally gamma radiation in their blood. Like, you know, it felt kind of weird to me. And the Ebony Maw thing about like the rings up here on his finger when he starts using Ebony Maw's powers. I was like, I guess the rings are a part of his DNA or something, you know?
And that goes to the Drax comment here. I understand that Drax has super strength, but that arm though. So the tattoos on the arm. So James Gunn made a comment about that, saying that that was part of his DNA. So he actually addressed that via social media, that Drax's tattoos are part of his DNA, and that's why they showed there with Gaia. Sorry.
I thought it was funny when they added the Chitauri in there, because Rocket straight up is like, oh, that's the suckiest army in the galaxy. And it's like, all right, well, now they've got that DNA in them as well, you know? Like, it was just kind of interesting. Like, there were a lot of people on this list that I was, like, not expecting, like, or just, I guess, beings like the Outriders. Like, I was really surprised that the Outrider DNA was in this, you know?
They were there. They were there, though. So.
Yeah, but it's just like they were just like fodder for for Thanos, though, you know, like they weren't really like anything too strong. They were just there to break through like the shield at Wakanda and stuff like that, and then they were there in the final battle. So,
question from the Facebook chat. So, question for you guys: how do you place the Super Skrulls on par with Marvel MCU heroes? Would they beat? Who would they beat, and who would they lose to? So, that's a great question, because typically the Super Skrull in the comics only had the Fantastic Four powers, if I remember. So now we have an overpowered Gaia who allegedly killed Gravik, who has the same overpower stuff, you know, especially with the Extremis healing. Where do they go from here? Because now she's probably the most powerful person in the MCU. Are they gonna do a Janet Van Dyne to her, where she had powers in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then we see her in Quantumania with no powers? Are they going to say that didn't take, you know, it's temporary powers? Are they going to say, well, maybe it transforms? We don't know what the long-term effects are of the Harvest on a Skrull, and maybe that was just temporary or not the full potential of the powers, because there's some questions to answer here. But if Gaia is as overpowered as she is today, she pretty much can take on anybody. So
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, she's basically like Captain Marvel and all these other beings rolled into one now. And I mean, like, I was really blown away about how Gravik was killed in this show, because he's got the DNA of Thanos, which was recognized as like one of the strongest beings in the galaxy, and Extremis. And so for him to just like take like a blow from Gaia to the stomach and just drop over dead, I was like, well, that was pretty anticlimactic. Like, you know, like it's a good scene. I just felt like it should have been more there. There should have been something different that they did to take him down. Like,
yeah, I you know what? Just seeing, I think that's Sebastian's comment actually about the harvest being a weak plot device. I don't think it was necessary at all. I think they could have just skipped that out completely. They didn't need that bit in there.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just stuck with those 4 powers. You know, the extremist, root of the frost giant, and the Cull Obsidian's strength. They could have stuck with that, and they could have made it just as interesting without getting it all, or maybe even just brought in Captain Marvel's DNA or something. So have all those other ones. I think it was, for me, it felt, it was too much. It felt a little bit cheap and a little bit cheesy for what the rest of the show was.
Mm-hmm. And what Andy would Justin about the comment here, so those listening later, the harvest as a plot device was pretty weak. What a great build up through episode 5, and to end everything with the rock paper scissors fight with every power in the MCU felt like a cop out. With a spy thriller vibe, it felt out of place. This is what She-Hulk was talking about. Maybe that's why they did it, because it's the comments from She-Hulk.
Well, I honestly feel like it's so terrible to end an espionage show with a CGI fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just out of place. It's like not what you want to do, and especially when like you cram that. Like, I felt like building up to the end of this, we knew that there was going to be some big fight, obviously, towards the end, and I felt like that was going to be a lot of the budget. But, like, I totally expected that fight to last at least a little bit longer than it did. Like, it felt like it was, like, done in a minute. And then it was like, all right, let's sweep this to the side and move on. Like, you know, and it was just, I don't know. Like, it was very disappointing to me.
So Iron Man 3 did show us that they can die. The extremist people, you know, with the big holes in the chest, and now they took him out because remember the main one under Killian, how he got the hole in the chest and he died, someone had Gravik died. So extremist foes can die, but like you said, he had Thanos' power, everyone else's power. So like you said, they could have left that out. They could have left that whole piece of the harvest thing out of this series and still gone for it. You know, the whole thing was them not finding a home, right? For them, you know, Carol let them down, Fury let them down. They wanted a home and they're out of patience. My other problem too is that the garden, right? Carol Danvers went to the garden to help kill Thanos in the beginning of Endgame. Why couldn't they have the garden as a home world?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely interesting. I think one of the biggest problems for me too is it doesn't really feel like at the end of this show that the Skrulls are looking for a home. It feels like Gravik's looking for a home because like this is all pushed by him, and even when he meets the council, like he's like there convincing all of them to take his side, and they're like, okay, I mean, yeah, I guess it makes sense to me. Like we'll go forward with it. But this show, it didn't really feel like it was like a major global issue to me, like that this was happening. It felt like it was like a family squabble between Fury and Vara and Gravik, and you know, it's like it just felt so weird to me. It was like it was really big like in episode 4, and then it like shrank back down by the 6th episode, and it was like really tiny again.
Yeah, this one, that part didn't stick the landing for me. There were some tones they did that did stick the landing at this show, but the whole Harvest and Gravik and Gaia fight did not stick the landing for me in this show. Question from Facebook chat: do you think we'll get a Kl'rt, I can't say his name properly, or a Pie book down the road? Both played a big part in Annihilation. Hopefully we do. We still know that, you know, they could have had, there's still Skrull invasion going on. We saw the end of that. We saw Gaia out there in that bigger room with a bunch more people. So that invasion is going on. It's not just going to end after this series. Whether we see that in the Marvels or that plays into Thunderbolts, maybe that's why Thunderbolts is going to be started, is because of this whole thing. But yeah, we still haven't seen the Queen Ranky. We still haven't seen the Emperor's Call they talked about. There's the whole invasion going on. So we still have, you know, proper Super Skrull probably possibly coming in the future. We'll see, or maybe there's still some DNA out there that they can still, you know, use to make it with the Fantastic Four powers, or rebuild that machine. That one lady scientist is still alive. The male one's gone. So a lot of things can happen. Another one here from the chat real quick. Alex said the words out of my mouth, bro. Terrible to end a spy thriller with a CGI super fight. And then the last one here from Facebook chat. The series as a whole was mostly a letdown, but I have faith in Loki, the new Loki trailer. Wow, which we'll talk about here soon.
Yeah, I got to admit, I don't feel let down by the series at all. I feel let down by the finish of it. But I think there was a lot of good things in there. I mean, it threw a couple of absolute classic Nick Fury lines in there that I don't think I'll forget. One of them I'm actually going to use in my real life, about tell me something I don't know. I mean, what a great way to get information from anybody, anywhere, ever. So I thought that was brilliant. And then, you know, I'm Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in. I think that was absolute class. And I think some of the dialogue between pairs of characters in the first sort of 3 or 4 episodes was really good. I thought the highway action sequence I thought was really good. I thought that Olivia Colman was really good. I really liked Ben Mendelsohn. I liked lots of this show. I just didn't like the last episode. I didn't even mind the 5th episode, and I don't mind plot holes either. We've got a saying in our house, and the saying goes, "It's a movie."
Yep.
You know what? So when people go, "Well, why did this happen?" and we go, "It's a movie. Just enjoy it. Just forget the fact." You know, we can. You know, we don't have to cover off absolutely everything. We're being asked to suspend our belief anyway in the first place about the fact that there's green aliens all the place. You know, just chew it on a little bit. But when they kind of, I think you're right there that, you know, that way to end that series was wrong. It just didn't go with the rest of it. So that was my feeling.
And I feel like their idea was like, you don't know who's the Skrulls, so that's the espionage side of it. And I'm like, okay, like I sort of get that. But one of the biggest problems that I have with this show is Talos' death. I feel like this show died to me when Talos died. And I'm going to explain my reasoning, because his death was meant to signify to the president that all Skrulls were not bad, and he laid down his life, sacrificed it for the president of the United States. At the end of this show, the president declares war on Skrulls, and it's like, we just lost Talos for no reason, and it's just like one of those things.
A cheap death.
Yeah, him, Maria Hill. We should not have, like, why did we even have Maria Hill back if they were just going to kill her in the show? Like, I thought this was going to be like big, and I honestly thought that this was going to end up with Talos laying down his life, and then Gaia was going to go to the president, and like they'd be like, hey, wow, you know, like your father saved the president, and his death, he did exactly what he wanted, and he like allowed the Skrulls like, you know, where the president's like, bring them to the United States, come on, like, you know, one of them saved my life, and I thought that would happen, but no, it did not. And I thought it was kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that too. And everything Andy said about the series, I agree with. The one thing I want to add to what Andy said was the gap fillers of the MCU history with Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. was also a big plus for me for the series as well. From the Facebook chat here, Olivia Colman was definitely the highlight of the series. I hope we see her again soon. Yes, whether it's MI6, MI13, you know, all those different things that she can do. There is some Skrull ties where there was a Skrull infiltration of the leader of MI13, who got pulled out and replaced, which kind of have shades of what we saw with Sonya and her own infiltration in this show. So maybe that kicks it off. So we have some shades there from the comics. Another one from the Facebook chat. I went from excited for this show to by episode 4, I was forgetting to watch episodes the day they came out. Agreed about Maria Hill and Talos. Their deaths felt a bit cheap. Yep, good point there. So, Alex, you mentioned, you know, President, what's his name? Ritson calling for the Skrulls. It wasn't Skrulls. The Skrulls, though, any off-world being. Which brings my next point is, one, we saw the Skrull vigilantes. You know, we saw people that got taken out because of vigilantes. But 2, off-world beings, right? We have New Asgard. First of all, the president doesn't control the whole planet, right? Of United States. He controls the United States. Yes, he's a superpower. He can have influence on, you know, the G7 or whatever, G6, some people, you know, all that kind of stuff and how they operate. But he can't really impose stuff on other countries by himself. So my question here, and I know Andy mentioned this before, how does his line in the end of this impact New Asgard? Could we have a siege storyline of New Asgard as one? Also, we know Guardians of the Galaxy have come and gone to the planets, right? The Battle of Earth, you're just cheapening the whole Battle of Earth with all those off-world beings who helped in the Battle of Earth. The Guardians, the Ravagers, you know, Asgardians, and so on. Also, too, could this be setting up mutant registration down the road? Is this kind of, you know, signaling what's to come in the MCU for mutant registration and humans, if we ever get those back? People from other universes even, you know, as we get into the multiverse and stuff, you know, America Chavez, who is a multiverse being that's basically off-world, you know, because of her status. And then also, what about if we get anybody back from the quantum realm too as well? How does that impact? Is this going to go, you know, the DODC getting more power? Is there a tone of this going into Brave New World? You know, Thunderbolts and Armor Worlds as well. And then my last point here is, I wonder if this will have a rise of the DODC getting a Trask-like person to have some kind of detection program, which leads us into a Sentinel-type thing, but for hunting Skrulls at first, but then that expands into other non-world beings also. So,
yeah, I mean, I think what I'm kind of most bothered by is the fact that at the end of this, Gaia just kind of leaves and joins Olivia Colman's character, and Fury's just kind of like, all right, see you later. Like, he does, like, gave you all these powers, like, bye. Like,
you deal with her.
Yeah, and I was just like, what? It's very strange to me because, like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, the end of episode 4, I think, should have been different, and I think we could have, like, been on a different trajectory with this series. And if they would have had Ritson die in that scene, then and they showed that like the Skrull tried to save him in essence, Ross could have been vice president. Ross could have then moved up to president. He would be president of the United States. And then at the end of this, Fury could have said, hey, Gaia, take that tech that you just used to become the Super Skrull and send that over to Ross because Ross wants it. And Ross could use that tech to make himself the Red Hulk. And that's the way that I felt like they should have. I thought they were going to go that route almost in this because, like, we talked about, like, what's going to happen. Is Ross going to become president in this and everything like that? And that is not what happened at the end of this. And, it was a very, it seemed like at the end of it, the state of affairs was completely different than I expected for everything happening on a global scale for the show.
And I wonder if Ross's tone at the end of this could possibly lead to his downfall going forward. Like, even if maybe not what he said at the end, but just the whole, he didn't know about all this stuff. He had infiltration of his own government. Maybe that's the tone that gets Ross into power. Or there's another way to where that the other world leader is saying, hey, there are Skrulls out there that have helped us. And they come to him and they kind of go against him, and that's how Ross gets in. But then Ross has his other ulterior motives in the background, but he wins the election on false pretenses type of thing.
Yeah, and you could have had Ross say that same, like, thing that Ritson says at the end, and it would be so in character for Ross, like, him become president and be like, I'm having Congress, like, write up a bill right now to declare everybody that's not, like, from Earth, like, an enemy and stuff like that. And then he could totally just lean right into the mutant registration stuff with that, and that would be like, so I felt like they missed the opportunities there, just like, just missed several of them.
So the Marvels is next, the next movie that's going to tie off to this. So we might get some hints there. I don't know if we'll get any big ones, but we might get some hints there. But then next year we have Brave New World, which I think that's going to be the biggest indicator of the fallout from this, because we're probably going to have we're going to have the Gamma stuff. We're going to have the Super Society. We're going to have the Hulk stuff. Possibly we might see more DODC. Interested to see what that tone is in Brave New World.
Yeah, I was really curious at the end of this, like, why Gaia's powers wouldn't be intertangled with the other three in, the Marvels, because she's got the same, like, powers as Captain Marvel, like her DNA as well. Like, I don't really think that's much of a stretch for her to not be, like, quantum entangled in that mess. So, it's like it's an interesting thing.
From the Facebook chat here, dude, I love to see Harrison Ford saying they don't deal with terrorists from his classic lines. Was it Air Force One? Was it? Yeah. So Fury and Vara. Oh, do you have something, Andy? You've been kind of nodding quiet. Okay.
No.
So let's move on to Fury and Vara. You mentioned that Fury went back to Saber with Vara. That, they kind of answered that question about when she asked him early on when they had the whole shooting in the house, would you have loved me a different way? And he goes, I guess we'll never know. Well, now we do know, right? Because we saw them kissing. He wants her to go back with them. But she says, they talk about the Kree in Skrull peace talks, that kind of stuff. He's an ambassador, whatever he said. But she says he has to come back from her work, in which leads me to, what does she have to come back for, right? The larger Skrull invasion? Is she still, possibly a double agent here? Remember, she had that book behind her, The Superhuman Gene, and is that going to lead to mutants and humans, etc.? So what are we going to see from her, and why would she come back, given that they're basically, the Skrulls have been named public enemy number 1 on Earth?
What kind of doctor was her character in the show?
I have to go back and see that. But I think she was some kind of genetic doctor, maybe, doing genetics, because she had that book.
I wonder if she could potentially maybe help Ross become Red Hulk, maybe. I mean, maybe she does something with, like, she identifies the mutant gene and brings that, to the public or something. They could do so many different things. I feel like that's kind of Fury's kind of ace in the hole. I feel like Fury would kind of know about mutants before everybody else would, if they do that with her character.
Yeah. Also, too, this show was the first Disney Plus show with no post-credit scene. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a missed opportunity, to be honest. I think they could have put 1 or 2 in there and just, again, like we said, 20 seconds, 30 seconds scene, just to give us a bit more information about something, about one thing, just to close something off. But there was a lot of loose ends left from this, which I don't feel are going to get tidied up for a long time, if at all. So yeah, it almost feels to me like the first 4 episodes were written and delivered in one way, and then the last 2 episodes were almost like was this during COVID when this was filmed? I'm just wondering whether there was something that happened between 4 and 5, or whether they kind of finished doing those first 4 episodes and then there was a big break and something happened and then they kind of come back and it was almost like a different world that they was writing in. It just seems so strange that they went from that first 4, that sort of classy, like sharp, episodes, and it was cool. It was cool, basically. And then this kind of cheesy feel that we got in the end. It was almost like 2 different people done it.
Yeah, I feel like in the last episode we briefly talked about it, but I mentioned like I had that idea that Gaia would go in there as Nick Fury and then have the harvest and defeat Gravik. And in my mind then, when I brought that up, I honestly felt like the only way that you can end this show is with 2 super powered beings fighting each other, right? Like, you can't have Nick Fury walk in there with a gun. He's already shot Gravik one time, and like he had 2 powers that, he didn't have like this just array of powers at his disposal. So, I mean, like, walking into that scene at the end, like, I'm like, I know this isn't Nick Fury. Like, they have a scene where Gaia, as Nick Fury, pulls out a Geiger counter and looks at it. And I'm like, that's for us to try and convince us that that's Nick Fury, which doesn't make any sense to me because there's no cameras or anything around.
Well, she might have been doing that because she felt like she might have been being watched and just
cameras.
But I'm saying there's no cameras or anything.
Yeah, but
green screen computers like there, like
if somebody else is watching, like with their own eyes, like out of a window or something. Oh, well, I've got to sell this or something.
But weren't there like dead scrolls everywhere that Gravik had killed? I mean, like, wasn't he the only one that was like pretty much left there? So like
that we know of.
Yeah. So when Gravik goes in. Or when she goes in and she's talking to Gravik, she drops the iodine pills or whatever, to try and make it seem like. But like that one scene with the Geiger counter, to me, I felt was to sell to the viewer that that's actually Nick Fury. And I was just like, okay, like I still didn't believe it. And then so like right as his hand went green and then he punched Gravik out and then it turns out to be Gaia, I was like, okay, like you totally see this coming. Like Fury's not going to go in there. Otherwise he was going to lose if it wasn't Gaia. Like it is, the cards are stacked against it.
I agree, but the conversation in that scene, I think Kingsley Benadir did a great job, and hopefully that's the last we see of him. Maybe he comes back as the proper Super Skrull later. I'm just sad that we don't see more of him because I thought throughout the whole series his presence on screen was really felt.
I thought we got less menacing as the series went on. I thought he was really menacing at the beginning, but he almost, I feel like, the scene when he was talking with Talos in the restaurant where everybody was him, when everybody turned into him, I thought that was great. He was really menacing there. But he was almost like he went too far. Do you know what I mean? Like he just didn't quite get that balance right.
When he got into that moment where he was yelling, "This is all because you didn't keep your promise," I was like, "Oh my God, what is he for?" Like, like it just like it felt so childish. It felt pathetic, like and that was what I did not like about this villain in this show. Like it just, like I said, it felt like a family squabble. It felt like a kid that was mad at his dad for not keeping a promise that he made to him. And I'm like, you would think that didn't the Kree kill Gravik's family? Like, he should have gotten those powers and then gone right off world and gone right after the Kree. Yeah. Like, that's what I would have done. Like, but like, it was like a weird thing. It was like, he was so set on taking the Earth for the Skrulls, but he was willing to kill all the Skrulls to take the Earth, and it's just counterintuitive to me.
From the Facebook chat here, does anyone else think it's funny that we have two guys with almost identical names in the show, Ben Kingsley and Kingsley Ben? That's cool. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was just going to say back to your original point, Joey. We went off on a tangent there about post-credit scenes. Yeah, it was a shame there was no post-credit scene, but I do also like. I think we spoke about this with Monty ages ago about saying how the post-credit scenes shouldn't necessarily be not a given necessarily, but mix it up a little bit. Have a 5-minute post-credit scene. Don't have one. Have 2. Have 10. Have one that's 20 seconds long. Have one that's really important. Have one that's not important. Do you know what I mean? Rather than having a methodical, like, you have to stay for this scene and it's going to be kind of connecting, but that's about it.
I felt the post-credit scene was actually in the show. I felt Sonya meeting with Gaia and saying, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're going to basically be honest with each other. Them meeting and then Gaia going in that room and seeing that there's a bigger invasion still out there. I felt that was the post-credit scene of this show, because looking at that can go into so many ways. We already know this is going to grow into the Marvels and the Armor Wars, but then that right there could have said, okay, well, season 2 is coming, right? That's a guess at season 2. It's also a guess if they're going to do an MI13 project or start off with MI6 and then build out from there. So there were some things there that should have been the post-credit scene, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts. I have one, but you guys want to go first?
I think we've said it really. Like I say, from my point of view, I think there was probably more positives than there were negatives. I thought the first 4 episodes were excellent. I thought the 5th one was all right, and then I was disappointed with the 6th one. And one thing that we haven't actually mentioned is the time. Again, we spoke about this after episode 5, saying why was it only 30 minutes long? That doesn't lend itself well to an espionage movie, because it just means everything's kind of rushed, and that's exactly how it felt. It was rushed. The whole sort of last episode and a half, 2 episodes was rushed. But there were lots of positives for me. I thought there was lots of good things. Performances by individual actors were excellent. New characters were excellent. Lines, there were some great lines. A great action scene, a great fight scene as well. I really liked the fight scene with Gravik and the other guy when they went in and tried to rescue that other geezer. But yeah, there was lots of positives, a few negatives, and it just didn't quite stick the landing like we said. That's for me. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think there's more negatives than positives to this show. I think one of the biggest issues for me was they were doing so well until episode 4, and then once they get to episode 6, it's like they didn't know what to do. They were stuck in trying to make this bigger and a larger problem and something that keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when they jammed the harvest in, Andy, I think you said it earlier, and I think it would have been absolutely perfect. They should have just stuck with the original 4 powers, and they could have just left the harvest out of this, and that could have been a season 2 thing. And that could have just been like one of those things where, like, if they're going to do a season 2, they could have built up to the harvest, but it felt like it was just like rammed in there at the end because they wanted to have that big CGI fight. And we hadn't really seen very much of the powers throughout the show, other than Gravik using them a little bit here, like Emilia Clarke's character saving her life, like with Extremis and stuff like that. So for me personally, like, I felt like they tried to make this bigger than it needed to be, and they really messed it up. And had they would have just just let that naturally play out with those powers, they could have done something, I think, really good here. And then you wouldn't have had the issue where Gravik was basically unkillable in my mind, even though they killed him. But whatever.
So I agree with everything you said. I'm not going to repeat that. So, echo those comments, but just to add on to it, they wanted to make this a Fury-centric show. They kept saying, Fury kept saying, this is my problem to deal with. I caused this mess. I'm going to clean it up. And I know that the comics are, can be used as a basis. Everything's not straight from the comic books, but I felt they missed opportunity with this show, right? The whole time this season, I've been harping about the latest Secret Invasion run, that 6-episode run with Maria Hill, with Fury, some of the elements in there. Right. They could have used that as a basis, and I have notes here, so I'm going to read from my notes I took. They could have used that as a basis, right? So they could have based it on that run, but Tony Stark's there. We know Tony Stark's gone. But instead of Tony Stark, they could have swapped in Rhodey for the Tony Stark role in this series. That whole line about, hey, Jacob, thank you, family member out there watching. But they could have taken some of the elements of that. They could have basically, had Rhodey working with a Skrull and, saying the whole line about the Skrulls and the government. Because I'm going to spoil this comic run. In this comic run, Tony Stark is actually working with Skrulls, but it's a special Skrull. The special Skrull from that story, they could have had Gaia have been that special Skrull in this series. They also, they wouldn't have the Harvest. They could have just gone with the original same Skrull 4 powers, the original, like Alex said. They could have had all the same elements still, as far as Varra, Priscilla, the Nations at Risk of War, the backstory with Fury and the Skrulls. They could have done all of that and wrapped it up that way. We didn't need the whole Harvest. We didn't need all that kind of stuff. You still could have had Sonya. A lot of the elements would have worked, but they still could have wrapped that around what that latest comic run is. If you haven't read that 6-issue run, it's on Marvel Unlimited. Go read it. It's a very Maria Hill, Nick Fury-centric story, which a little bit of Tony Stark built in. It's basically on the heels of the last Skrull one, so it's post of the big Secret Invasion event. But they could have done that. My last thing is that they probably should have done a Secret Invasion saga versus a show like this, depending how they do in the future with this whole thing, right? They could have done a whole Secret Invasion saga after, like, the Mutant Saga, or whatever's after the Disc Saga for Multiverse Saga. They could have done this on its own, or could have done a side saga with an additional one. But I do have a feeling, though, since there's some really good elements in this show, and this show has laid seeds for, different things. I mentioned the Marvels, Armor Wars, Brave New World, Thunderbolts, even possibly MI13, a second season. This could be one of those pivot projects, like kind of like Age of Ultron, right? Age of Ultron first came out, a lot of people didn't like it. But now you go back and watch Age of Ultron, look how that thing's set up. It actually pushed on the path to Infinity War, to Endgame, because before Age of Ultron, we didn't get much of the Infinity Stones, of the big picture and everything that happened. And then look what that set up going down the road, right? So I think later on, this could be seen as a pivot project and kind of looked at similar to AOU a few projects later, like AOU was.
Mm-hmm. I'll just throw out one more thing, too. I was just really surprised that we didn't really get much dialogue about the Kree in this. Like, leading up to the Marvels and seeing how there's going to be Kree in that movie, I felt like they would at least talk about the Skrulls and the Kree, like, a little bit. Like, I felt like they would at least mention, like, more about their debacle and why they're at war and things like that. And, it was more of like, hey, Gravik's family was killed by the Kree, right? Like, I mean, like, it just didn't really feel like we got much more than that,
So from the chat here, Jacob from Facebook chat says, I'm hoping Gaia is killed off. Character is weak. I'm hoping they riff off Dark Avengers and have Ross kill her. That'd be interesting because she's left there with Sonya and Skrulls are being hunted, and that could lead into Thunderbolts, for example. The other thing, too, is we still haven't found out about Gaia's shell, right? So could her powers evolve into, like Andy has said, Abigail Brand, for example? Mm-hmm. Going forward in the MCU, and she's not overpowered.
Yeah, and that was really interesting in that final fight, that she maintained that human form throughout the fight, while Gravik, like, straight up went monster form. I feel like they were trying to do that to, like, kind of ease the confusion of who might be who in the fight, as, like, scenes change and shots change. But, like, I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, but also, too, we've seen the differences when it's a male Skrull versus a female Skrull. Look at Varra, look at Rhodey.
But with all the powers,
true.
Like, they were changing. Like, they'd be using somebody's DNA and their arm would change, and, their chest would change, their legs would change, so,
All right, we good with Secret Invasion?
Yeah, let's move on.
Loki, Season 2 trailer. Have at it.
Yeah, that was no surprise once we got that poster on Monday. I quite like it. I love all the people going, oh, yeah, rumours are that there's a new trailer on Monday. You mean they've released a poster and they're going to release a new trailer? No way. Really? Like what they've done for every project for the last forever. You genius. You must have some inside information that nobody else has got. So it was no surprise that we got that trailer today. I've only just watched it, actually. I only just watched it earlier on this evening. I haven't had time all day, but... yeah, it looks interesting. It's nothing like what I was expecting, actually. There's a whole load of new things going on, which I thought it was just going to be, which I think it is going to be a continuation of season 1, obviously, but I thought it was going to be more of the same, which I really liked. And this looks different, which I hope I still do really like, but it's different stuff. This time glitching, which is obviously a new concept that we've not seen before, and he's been sort of thrown through time. So yeah, it should be interesting.
From the YouTube chat, looks like we have a new watcher here. So aggressively relaxing, welcome. What's up? I searched comics and now I'm here. Loki looks great.
Nice to see you. Join the conversation. Drop your comments. We're here all night.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was I was thinking about it. Loki's doing that time glitch thing in this trailer, and he is like technically not the same Loki from that universe where Avengers Endgame happened.
Yep,
he's like a different timeline. So
where's Alex? You're breaking up a little bit there, right? Can't quite hear you. Say that all again.
I can hear him. Keep going.
Oh, I can. Oh, okay. Sorry.
But anyway, I was just saying, like, maybe his timeline was pruned, and maybe that's why he's glitching out, is because he has no base timeline. So maybe they have to find some way to, like, stabilize him. Because I think they had that line in the trailer where they say something like, oh, this has never happened in the TVA. Like, because the TVA is, like, outside of all that, I feel like,
So coming here from Jacob via Facebook, which I was thinking the same thing. I found the time glitching mirrored the concept from Into the Spider-Verse. That's the first thing I thought too. Yeah, when he was time glitching, I thought the same exact thing, that you're not supposed to be there, you're out of your universe, that kind of thing. And maybe they give Loki a similar special device to help fix that time slippage. So yeah, great shout out, Jacob.
It looks crazy, doesn't it? There's so many different elements to it. All the characters that we've seen in the first season, we're seeing them again now, but just as sort of different variants or at different times in different places, different uniforms. They're looking like they're sort of from all different areas. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be quite a wild ride, this one.
This is a great one here. I guess relaxing via YouTube chat. I can't wait for the eventual Thor sees Loki is alive again scene, because that's going to happen in Secret Wars, or even Kang Dynasty could happen. It's going to happen at some point.
Loki needs to say, I told you, brother, one day the sun will shine on us again. That would be just, that would be so perfect.
It would be a great scene, either in Secret Wars or in the Kang Dynasty, where Thor's possibly about to get killed by Kang, and here comes Loki through a portal to save him once again, like an Endgame, but instead they both survive, and he says that line that you just said.
I think it would be so awesome to have Loki kill Kang, like, at the end of all this, because, like, it could be, like, Loki's glorious purpose, right? Like, defeating Kang and saving the multiverse. Like, yeah, you're not a hero of that universe, but you're a hero of the multiverse kind of type of thing, It'd be very awesome.
So I took kind of 5 things away from this trailer I put in notes. So number 1, Jonathan Majors still there, right? The statue behind the wall that Loki comes out, the face is still there. We saw Victor Timely, sorry to the post-credit scene in the Multiverse of Madness, and some other things there with Jonathan Majors Kang. So right now, he's still there, and from when I was looking about people's comments from the Scoopers, that right now it looks like he's going to be remaining, and that's going to, whatever's going on is going to be worked out. Number 2, Renslayer is back. We saw her in season 1. She went through a portal or something. We didn't know where she went, but it looks like she is now in the Victor Timely era, which I wonder... They said she was a teacher. They didn't really say her. I don't think they really said what era that she came from when they brought her to the TVA. So is that her original universe, or is she going back to get Victor Timely to find answers and to see how everything got started? Also, too, we saw a shot of Renslayer in the Void as well. So does she get pruned at some point to be put in the Void? If you look real closely, there's a Mobius variant, it looks like, where he's coming through one of the doors. Was that a variant of Mobius, or was that his moment, a flashback to when he originally brought to the TVA and is now a TVA agent? And the last one was that Loki is showing more powers again, where he was kind of more settled down in powers in season 1. We're seeing those powers amp back up in season 2. So
yeah, I was just about to say something, and Jamie Cloud has said it as well. Yeah, Miss Minutes rampaging through like the Stay Puft Marshmallow head.
That's a great one right there. I love that part with Victor Timely. I want that's her creation right there too. Is when we see that scene was her creation. That's been inspired by Victor Timely. Jacob from Facebook chat. I wonder if all Lokis or Scarlet Witches are a bomb, like Molecule Man in the comics. Which that's a great point, because we don't have any hints of Molecule Man. So could Loki or Scarlet Witch be that surrogate in the MCU?
I think maybe said that. we've said that a few times before, haven't we? That the Scarlet Witch will be the surrogate for Molecule Man in Secret War. Secret Wars.
And maybe that's part of the reason why magic doesn't work in the TVA. Maybe they had to figure that out because of, something like that. They had to prevent that. So,
yeah. I'll be interested. Just going back to your first point, Jaren. I'll be interested to see how much Jonathan Majors is in this show. I wasn't surprised to see him in the trailer, but I would have thought that we would have seen a lot more of. I think we would have seen a lot more of him if there hadn't been such controversy around him at the moment within the trailer. I think they would have played a little bit more on him. I wonder whether they've changed some things so that he's less involved at this point. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much of him we actually do see going forward in this season 2. Because obviously that's all still ongoing at the moment. There's no resolution to that, so we don't really know what the situation is with him personally. So I don't know how much are they going to sort of gamble on having him in the show. Do you know what I mean? How much they're going to put him in there front and center. I think it would have been a lot more if this hadn't been going.
I don't think they changed much. I believe before that happened, most of Loki was done. If anything, they probably have ending changes to what they can show at the ending of the show in case something happens. But from what the scoopers are saying out there, it looks like it's that Majors is not going to be swapped out at this time. So maybe they have 2 different endings that they can put on to where if whatever happens with him, they can change it out. And we have a new Kang at the end of season 2. I don't know. That's just what I've been seeing out there. From the chat here, YouTube, aggressive relaxing. I was thinking comedy, but you guys are right. A heroic Loki is still alive reveal will be great. So there you go, Alex. Here's your thought there.
Is it ever not comedy though with Loki and Thor? Do you know what I mean? Even when it's serious, there's a little bit of a twist to it. Like the Glorious Purpose was, with Richard E. Grant was great, wasn't it? But it still did make you smile. It was still a little bit, you were kind of like, yeah, that's really cool. You wasn't like, whoa, yeah. But
speaking of that,
film.
I wonder if we're going to see more Loki variants again this season. We saw him kind of multiplying, but different variants. Like we saw the different ones in the Void in season 1. So, Jacob here, Facebook chat. Click back on the screen there. I think nothing will change. They probably just have an alternate scene where Majors is swapped for a more Beyonder-like variant, being the Prime King. That's a great point. So,
yeah, potentially, yeah. But we've got 6 episodes of this, and the last episode will be coming out on the same day that the Marvels is released, or well, kind of officially released anyway. So we've got 6 weeks building up to that from October. So that should be another interesting week. It's been great these last 6 weeks. Or something to see back on Secret Invasion. It's been something for us where we've been very, very consistent for the last 6 weeks. We missed having that reason to definitely be here. So Loki will do that again for us, and we'll be here every week talking about Loki each episode. So looking forward to that from that perspective. But it's going to be interesting seeing the guy that played Data
short round. Oh yeah.
In there. He looks like he's. Did it say it says repairs and something else on the
maintenance or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So he's obviously like the repairman for the TVA.
Which I love that scene where Mobius puts on the helmet or whatever, and he's like, "Wait, is there a crack in there?" And he just pulls out some duct tape and slaps. I was like, "Man, that is the most human thing ever." That is so true. I could totally
universal fix duct tape.
Yeah.
I think they actually do that as well. I think that's actually a real thing. In space, that's what they actually have, duct tape, in case that happens. I genuinely think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Any more thoughts on Loki, or should we move on to some news?
I just want to throw out one thing. I thought it was really funny that we see McDonald's in this. I don't know why, but I was just I totally did not expect that to be Sylvie to be working at McDonald's in this show. I was, out of all the things that I could imagine, I'd not imagine that to happen.
And how she got there.
Yeah, so it's just I'm really curious to see too, do we see incursions mentioned or leaned into at all in this show? I feel like we're starting to get into that a little bit more, And I feel like there's no better place to explain it, but I feel like I'm getting my hopes up if I like expect it. So I'm just kind of hoping that it happens, you know?
And then Loki Indy leading to the Marvels, and we see a major first incursion there in the Marvels. It'd be great. So,
for sure. What we got news-wise this week, Jarian?
Let's start off with strike news. So Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, has donated Black Adam. Has donated a historic sum of money to the SAG-AFTRA just to support the strike. It's the largest single donation that we've ever received from an individual at one time. It's a 7-figure donation with the exact amount being kept quiet. So it looks like he's being a superhero in real life as well. SAG-AFTRA have indicated to the studios they're ready to get back to bargaining and have asked the AMPTP to return to the table. The studios have declined. The studios are currently refusing to return to negotiation with SAG and WGA and instead plan on waiting until members start losing their apartments/houses. Reps for studios, that was earlier. Now today, this is out today. Reps for studios and streamers have reportedly expressed a desire to return to negotiation with SAG-AFTRA in a meeting on Friday. So the SAG, not the WGA, though. This is after I just said they refused about a week ago. And also the WGA will officially been on strike for 3 months Wednesday this week.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we're starting to get some delays, though, now because of the strikes. Kraven the Hunter has now shifted to release date of August 30th, 2024, which was initially set to release this October. That's almost a year delay. Wow.
I mean, I think they've taken the opportunity to hear the feedback after the trailer and just go, should we start again?
Yeah.
They've probably used this strike to their advantage.
But how? Because they can't do reshoots, they can't do writing. So what are they going to do?
Not yet. They can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that they just go, do you know what? Should we not bother and let's just let Aaron Taylor Johnson go back and be Quicksilver again, because this is just a waste of him.
Madam Web is getting released 2 days earlier on Valentine's Day of 2024, so there's some good news. Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel has also been pushed back further to March 29th of 2024. I wonder if this impacts anything with Paul Rudd going forward, since he was one of the main characters in that film. Karate Kid reboot, which I had no idea was happening, was going to release in June next year, but now it's been postponed to a December release.
Again, do we need it again? We've had, we had
reboot.
Son, yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, we had Will Smith's son try and do it, didn't we? And then we've had the Cobra Kai, which was great. Do we need a reboot of it?
Just keep doing Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse has lost its March release. It was hinted, which we knew this was coming because of all feedback about the production of it and the pushback and that kind of stuff. Right now, it's delayed indefinitely. What is it? I don't know. Actually, I know I feel about that one. Venom 3 is stopped production during the strike. The film is slated for July 12th still. So we'll see. Gran Turismo is still set for its August release.
That looks really fun, actually. And on a true story that I couldn't believe was actually a true story.
Yeah, same.
But it is.
Yeah.
Armor Wars news. According to IMDb, Damian Marcano is listed as the director. Also, it appears the writer's room will include Bo DeMaio, who worked on X-97 and Moon Knight, Malcolm Spellman, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Captain America: Brave New World, Zach Penn, The Incredible Hulk and the Avengers, Brian Tucker, Secret Invasion. So it sounds like we have a pretty solid writer's room based on, what projects they worked on in the past.
And a very varied writer's room as well.
So,
nice.
Fantastic Four news. This movie's never going to get made. Adam Driver exits as Reed Richards. Basically, Scooper Jeff Snyder reported that Adam Driver was never really engaged when it comes to playing Reed Richards. He simply couldn't connect with the character on the page, which is I commend Adam Driver for that. Look, it's not right. You don't feel it's the right role for you. Don't do it. Don't take the money and and do that kind of thing. So,
especially something as big as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, I do not think he was the right person for that role, And I think you're right. It feels like this is just dragging out forever. It feels like we're never going to get this Fantastic Four movie. And I mean, like, maybe their plan is like they'll just hold out long enough that we'll just be so happy to get the Fantastic Four that whoever it is, we'll be happy with.
I'm telling you right now, just cast 4 unknown people and let them just go the best at it. Or bring in the Always Sunny cast. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But no, just find some young up and coming actors or some new actors and have a bang out script, a bang out, production, and hopefully they can carry the movie, because right now it feels like this movie is doomed from the start. It just feels like. And speaking of doom, Cillian Murphy did make some comments on his press junket for Oppenheimer on if he played Doom. So he had an interview with Josh Horowitz on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and he was asked. He said, yeah, I think you've answered the question. Yeah, I mean, it's always about the script, so I'll read. If someone's in the script, I'll read it, and you never know what turns up. He also said, my kids love horror movies, but I don't watch them. So I could see him playing Doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that I would love to see him as Doom. I don't know. I feel like he's got that demeanor about him to play Doom,
Have you seen that one movie with him and Rachel McAdams when they're on the plane and he's like a terrorist?
I don't think so.
I can't remember what it's called, but he actually does really well in that movie, and just his presence and how he's terrifying. Just the whole majority of the movie on a plane, and he's basically just terrorizing her to get a high profile, I think, government official moved to hotel rooms. But I can't remember the name of the movie, but yeah. He was pretty good in that one. He's done well in other movies I've seen him in also. So,
and he played Scarecrow in the Nolan Batman trilogy. And I know this will sound weird, but I thought that he was so underutilized in that role. I mean, not that that's like not a big enough character for him, but I just felt like like he can do so much more than Scarecrow.
Yep.
So,
we do have Agatha news. You mentioned Quicksilver. We have some Quicksilver news. Maybe. Rumors going around that Evan Peters will reprise his role as Ralph Bonner in the series in Covenant Chaos. So I don't know if that's going to be him being possessed by Quicksilver again, or if that's going to lead to him being the struggling actor that's going to lead into Wonder Man that he's supposed to be in. So, but it sounds like he'll be back. And the rumor also states that you will see a very traumatized Ralph Bonner in the series.
They just need to go ahead and really confuse us and have Evan Peters play Quicksilver in Deadpool 3, and then that'll just be like, dude, what is even happening with that?
I'll bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson to do it. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, that would be so funny.
Or have them both in there in that Spider-Man. I mean, they're putting at each other like, yeah.
Deadpool's like, wait, you're not Evan Peters. Like,
what was that show with Elliot Page where they're driving the cars and they're looking at each other? That meme?
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, that's what it was. They could have a scene like that, them running by each other, just looking at each other like that in Deadpool 3. That'd be great.
That's going to be so funny, that movie. If he's going to be our voice, isn't he? Deadpool's just going to be our voice when we go, wait a minute, what are you doing here? Like, nobody even liked you.
Please say that to Cyclops, please.
More rumor about Agatha is that hold a second, sorry. Is that Aubrey Plaza will be returning after Agatha Covenant Chaos, and the rumor states that she's set up to be a big hitter. So,
oh, okay,
yep.
That's interesting.
X-Men 97 news. Madeline Pryor will reportedly appear in X-Men 97. Basically, she's like a clone of Jean Grey by Mr. Sinister, so very powerful. And speaking of Mr. Sinister, he is the villain in season 1. So, wow.
Cool. I'd love to see him in live action.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, just such a flamboyant, visually interesting, a character with great monologues. I just think he'd be such a great character in live action.
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, you said this. Yeah.
I I feel like with a character like that too, like he's got history. Like I think he's like over 100 years old too, like in comics and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure he goes back to like the 1800s. So like I think he goes back to, I mean, that's about like the time Blade was born and stuff like that, right? Like so I mean, you have like this guy who kind of like is obsessed with evolution. It just goes so well with the X-Men and mutants and everything. Like I think that's going to be great, to be honest.
That'd be a good one for Gina Carlo Esposito too, if he's not Professor X.
Oh, yeah. That would be really good.
Denzel could pull that role off too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they have a lot of Mr. Sinister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Giancarlo could do that job. Yeah, I think he's got that. He's got that. I was going to say he's got that sinister vibe about him, but yeah, he kind of has. But he's also, I think he can be flamboyant enough as well. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been out, but I'd love to see him in live action.
Miss Marvel news. Miss Marvel producer Sana Amanat spoke on the prospects of the show getting in season 2 at Comic-Con. It's great to see more demand. Complain. I'm happy to have you guys complain to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. Let's go season 2. So,
I hope that they don't get stuck into this. Like we spoke about this about a year ago after seeing the special presentation of Werewolf by Night, and it was kind of like they've not done anything with that format as of yet. Like we don't know anything about that format, and I think it would still be quite nice to say, okay, we've got Miss Marvel. She's had a show. She's now going to be in this movie. Let's have a special presentation. It's just about a Miss Marvel story, a self-contained 45-minute Miss Marvel story,
or even just DODC, right?
Yeah, DODC. Yeah, this special presentation, and then you can kind of interchange characters. They don't have to always stay in the same format. Do you know what I mean? So like Loki, for example, could have been a movie, and then like Loki season 2 could have been a movie, or you then draw back and take, I don't know. I suppose they are doing that. You've had Falcon, or become Captain America. Now he's got his own movie. He was in a show. He's gone from a movie, but yeah, they can be a bit more flexible, I think.
They don't have to like lean on those like special presentations just for the holidays. I think like the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, I think that was so unneeded. We really didn't need that. It was like a waste for me because like it was okay, but it just wasn't like, it felt like it was so unneeded, but like you could totally take some of those things and you could just do short little things that we either missed in the MCU or just nice little connecting pieces that you could pump out a story for 20-30 minutes. Like one of those I would love to see, and I know we'll never see it, but would be Cap breaking everybody out of the raft in Civil War. Like, at the end of that would be so awesome to see him just like infiltrate in, get everybody out and leave and save everybody and do that in like 15 minutes. And you could just have him just go in hot, just beating people up, and then like, just like get everybody out, leave, and have Ross calling Tony, like, Tony, we got a problem. And then, him just hanging up. Like, it would be so great.
And you have the footage that you can reuse too from some of those things, right? So minimal footage would have to be done for that.
Yep. In comics, there must be a name for this, but they kind of they do that in comics, don't they? You're sort of reading the story and all of a sudden there's like 2 pages that's about something completely different. Mm-hmm. It's not even associated with the story that you're reading. It's about something totally different, but it gives you a story within 2 or 3 pages of that comic. And then it gets back to the story that you were reading. Probably doesn't happen so much anymore, but it used to happen back in the day. You used to get that all the time. There's probably a word for that. I'm not sure what it is, but there probably is a word for that. But it's kind of like that.
Yeah. I remember talking about, I can't remember what it's called though.
Yeah.
Okay. Captain Marvel. So it looks like it's going to act as sequels or continuation stories of the following projects: WandaVision, Captain Marvel, Endgame, Miss Marvel, and Secret Invasion. Brie Larson has said this was something Kevin Feige and I had talked about from the beginning, that this was the way the story made sense to go. So
it's all the projects that they were all in previously, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, makes sense.
Looks like RMC's with us, listening on the car ride home. What's up, RMC? The RMC.
The RMC.
Yeah. Thomas Hayden Church on more Spider-Man, who played Sandman. He said, there's always been some kind of, I've heard rumors that Sam Raimi was going to do another Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. And if that happens, I would probably campaign to maybe at least do a cameo. That's what he said when he was doing interviews for Twisted Metal. So now, do we need to see a fourth Maguire Raimi movie. No, we need a third Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movie.
Cy Francis put on the page, didn't he, the other day on our Facebook group? What would you rather see? A fourth Maguire movie or a third Garfield movie? And it was an easy choice for me. Certainly after No Way Home, it made it even easier. Maybe before No Way Home, I would have said maybe a fourth Maguire movie, but certainly afterwards, it's an easy decision. Got to be a third Garfield.
Just no more mechanical right now, please.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like there's so much meat left on the bone on that story, too, for Garfield, you know? Like, they kind of, like, stopped with that second movie, not really finishing out, I feel like, that full vision of what that trilogy would entail. So there's room there, you know what I mean?
You know what they should do? They should have the Rhino as the villain of that movie. The movie starts off where 2 ended, where he destroys the mechanical Rhino suit, and Paul Giamatti gets some kind of serum or something to turn into a proper Rhino with a proper comic book Rhino. That would be great. Yeah, he'd be more CGI, but the voice of Giamatti and the way he delivers stuff would be great, as you know, in that storyline with the Rhino being the villain.
That could really work as well, because it's that whole kind of don't rely on this piece of machinery. You're like, I actually want to become a Rhino. You know, this is too clunky and too kind of it's not fast enough. It's not smooth enough. You know.
Yep.
Almost a little bit like what Tony says in Iron Man 1, you know, what's better than a pilot or a plane without a pilot? And he says, what about a pilot without the plane, or something like that? It's this kind of similar situation, isn't it? It's almost like, actually, I'd be better off if I wasn't in this suit, if I was actually the Rhino, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We have some Daredevil news. So Daniel RPK is basically saying that Daredevil Born Again will reportedly be 2 parts consisting of 9 episodes each. So that was like we had before, where I thought it could be 16 or 6 episodes, 3 parts each, but it's going to be 2 parts, 9 episodes each for the 18 episode run.
I mean, that's not unusual for TV programs anyway, so it's not a bad guess, because lots of TV programs do that. They have a mid-season finale and then they come back, you know, 3 or 4 months later and finish off the season. And it's a slightly different story, and you get the chance to have a bit of a cliffhanger and then a refresh and then come back again. Tell 2 different stories within one season, but they are connecting. So, you know, it's a good assumption for sure.
I get so frustrated by those things whenever they do like that hiatus. Like, I remember Stargirl did that one year, and I was just like, "Oh, you are killing me right now! I cannot wait like 3 months for this to come back." Like,
was this when they had like the whole the Dark World thing? What is that?
The Calypso?
Yeah, Calypso, yeah.
Yep. That, I think that was the season, and I think there was one of the earlier seasons that really, like, there was that one episode where cannot remember his name, but the guy that has the ice powers, he kills one of the kids on the bridge.
Icicle?
Yeah, Icicle,
yeah.
Thank you. And he kills that kid on the bridge, and I'm like, my jaw just hit the floor. Like, I was just like, and Stargirl, they just did this, you know? Like, that show was always, like, just catching.
Underrated. Other than Solomon Grundy's CGI, the show was underrated.
So bad. Oh.
The arcs of Daredevil will be very dark and mature in tone, similar to Netflix version, and seemingly aiming towards TV MA rating. So there you go, people. Vincent D'Onofrio, there's someone tweeting about the show, and he responds to the tweet. The tweet was, "No Karen, no Foggy, no thanks." He similarly replied, "Patience, patience." And so it sounds like we will be getting Karen and Foggy back, probably the same actor and actress, but in some form, it looks like at some points, either hints to them or they'll be in the show. Also, too, the villain Muse is rumored to appear in the series as well.
That's interesting. Going back to the Karen and Foggy thing, I don't see why not. I didn't particularly dislike either of them. I thought they were both pretty good. So I don't see why they wouldn't bring them back if they've already brought back Vinny D, they've already brought back Charlie Cox. It sounds like
Kristen Ritter.
Kristen Ritter. Sounds like John Berthnell's coming back.
They didn't bring back Vanessa though. You know,
Vanessa.
That's not what I said, and I heard it in my head like that. You know,
it sounds like we're going to get Jennifer Garner, so it's all right. It's all good.
Yeah. Deadpool news. Wanda is not in Deadpool 3 reportedly. Hold on a second before I finish this. Yep, RMC agrees. Bring him back. Same with Elektra.
Yeah, but see, that's my point. We've got Jennifer Garner. We don't need the other girl.
So Deadpool news. Reportedly, Wanda is not in Deadpool 3, but she is mentioned. The villain of the movie is someone from the MCU 616. Now, with the whole TVA and that kind of stuff, could Renslayer be the villain of this movie? That would be interesting.
Yeah, maybe. The villain might be Mobius. Like, he might be, quote unquote, a villain.
Yeah, true.
You know, he might just be asking Wade to do bad things. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad guy. It's that perspective again, isn't it? It's like, whose eyes are you seeing this through? I mean, but let's face it, Deadpool isn't exactly a hero. Most of the time, he's actually a villain. It's just you're seeing it through his eyes, so you think that he's the hero. This is kind of what we said before about that different perspective.
What if it's Miss Minutes or Loki?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we may not actually see, like, maybe the person who's causing all this, but I feel like when Deadpool gets into a mess, he just makes it, like, 400 times worse. So, like, you know, that's kind of what's going to happen here is Deadpool's almost like his own villain.
His own villain.
Yeah.
His own worst enemy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I feel like this is all just going to be, like, probably just caused by him, and it's just going to chalk it right up to that, you know?
So Rob Liefeld, who is the Deadpool creator, he went silent about Deadpool 3 at Comic-Con. So he was interviewed, and he said, "I can't say anything about the movie as I promised Marvel and Disney. I got the call, so here I am saying nothing. I will say nothing. He tried, but I cannot say anything. There's nothing to be said." Oh, here you go. RMC says AI Yawn Road. What if it's Ultron? You know, there you go. But then he follows up and says, "I think Miss Minutes." This is via Facebook chat. So there you go. So it looks like Rob is keeping mum. He probably knows more than he's on. He's the creator, so they probably have done some consulting with him. So that's interesting. He's like, "I'm not going to tell you, so quit asking." We have some Echo news. Speaking with Entertainment Tonight, Zach McLaren, who plays William Lopez, Echo's father, right? Yes. In Hawkeye, talks about Echo. He says, "I wasn't involved with the show as much as I am with other shows. Obviously, it was much smaller, my footprint on the show. I worked in Atlanta a couple of weeks, and it was a wonderful experience. I think they got some good scripts that were written by native writers, and they've got Sidney Freeland, who is an amazing Navajo director, on set at the helm. It's Marvel's first, what's worth the wait right there. It was a wonderful experience, and I think people are going to enjoy Echo. What I read and what I saw going on down there was amazing. I was very happy to be part of it again." So, but maybe flashback scenes then?
Yeah, I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by this, you know.
I'm looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm just surprised that there's not more conversation about it, and I feel like it's sort of like coming out, you know, like in November. I mean, we've got some other stuff going on around that time. Like, I feel like, you know, like I just feel like building up to it, like I feel like we would have heard like a lot more excitement and things by then, but like it almost feels like this project hasn't really gotten the treatment it deserves in a way, you know.
Maybe we'll start watching up,
which is exactly why I think it'll probably be quite good. Yeah, because there's no expectations around it, is there? You know, we go into, like, as you said earlier, Alex, like, you know, you're going to try and go into Loki without the expectation to see certain things, and maybe that's why Echo will come out on top, because people are going to be maybe even expecting it to be not very good, and actually it will surprise some people.
Mm-hmm. It'll be all released at once, right?
Yeah, binge watched that around Thanksgiving. Also, too, there's some chatter out there that Daredevil will be in the show early on, and then we won't see him again until the end. So, Brave New World. Speaking of Secret Invasion, according to the Comic Circus, the Skull Paranoia will be explored in Brave New World. So there you go. Which is the next major project besides the Marvels. That's the first part of next year, right? Is Brave New World the first movie next year? Yes.
Yeah. I think Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Armor Wars are gonna all sort of tie into that whole world.
Mm-hmm.
I am so pumped for Armor Wars now. I was already pumped before the end of Secret Invasion, but now I'm even more pumped because I want to see that emotion from Rhodey, find out about Stark married, Stark having a child, Stark sacrificed, just him pretty much going ham on everything and everyone because of the circumstances. So
it's like Rhodey taking his life back. I mean, that'd be like a great, I feel like, movie to see. And at this point, like, we love Don Cheadle as War Machine just as much as Tony Stark being Robert Downey Jr. You know, like, I think that was even better than Terrence Howard when they made that switch with the actors. You know, like, he's such a great actor. So, like, yeah, give him a movie. It's overdue, to be honest. Like, he should have like stepped forward and been a lot more in the spotlight, I think, a long time ago. So
RMC via Facebook chat here says everything going to get kicked again because of the strike. You came on late, so I mentioned that with the strike that they are looking to negotiate with the WGA. The SAG-AFTRA. They're looking to negotiate with them, but nothing on the writers. So we might see some things stabilize. Maybe we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's still a possibility that thing will get kicked again with dates. What if season 2 news? Reportedly, Marvel will release in December of this year or January of next year. They're waiting to see how the strike plays out. It's also been reported that the What If Tony landed on Sakaar will not be the season 2 premiere. So
I feel like the sort of that boat has sailed with that episode now. It's almost like, you know, like, if we forgot, we'll go, oh yeah, I forgot all about this now. You know, what happened?
Yeah. And that's the place, like, a major storyline too in season 2. It's like, why show it?
And they gave us Gamora from that episode in the finale two-part finale of What If for season 1. So for them to kind of like go backwards, it seems like almost kind of like a weird U-turned almost.
Unless something else ties into season 2 as well.
Yeah, it just feels like they don't want to like throw away that footage. I feel like
that's almost it. Yeah, let's use it. We've done it, so let's use it. Let's put it out there. I mean, we'll watch it, I guess, but you just kind of think, could that time be used doing something different?
Definitely. Lando news. Now we're on the Star Wars thing. Donald Glover is officially joining the series to write and star. He'll write with his brother Stephen Glover, with Justin Simien, the director of Haunted Mansion. But Justin Simien, the director of Haunted Mansion, who was originally announced is off the project since he has been since he's been started that film. So the Glover brothers are doing it. Donald Glover's back. We're getting a Lando series. So look forward to that one.
Yeah, I like Donald Glover. So I'm not sure I liked him as Lando when I see him in the Han movie, but I do like Donald Glover. So let's see if he can go again and change my mind.
Flash news. So Nicolas Cage did talk about his cameo via USA Today. He said, well, I was glad I didn't blink. For me, it was the feeling of being actualized. Even that look for that particular character, finally seeing it on screen was satisfying. But as I said, it's quick. If you really want to know what I was going to do with that character, look at my performance in City of Angels. I was supposed to play Clark Kent after that in Superman Lives. And I was already developing this alien otherness playing his angel. Alex, I'm trying not to laugh looking at you. Playing this angel. This was a perfect example of the tonality you would have had gotten for Kal-El and for Clark Kent. Clark would have been a little more amusing, but Kal-El had the sensitivity and the goodness and the vulnerability and all those feelings that were kind of angelic and also terrifying. That's a lot to say nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You know, and I honestly did not think that was like a very good scene in that Flash movie, to be honest. Like, and if I remember correctly, I think Kevin Smith was originally supposed to direct that. I could be wrong on that.
I think you're right. My favorite person in the world was supposed to direct that one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right up there with you. Like, I mean, like, I don't really understand why he makes some of the things he does sometimes. But, you know, like, I don't know why anybody would want to see Superman fight a giant spider in a movie either. And that would be then done in the Flash movie. But, you know, whatever.
The whole Superman thing in Flash and so those cameos are just, I haven't seen the Flash yet, but I've seen the whole cameo scene. It's like, I did like, Christopher Reeves and Helen Carter, that was kind of cool, the childhood stuff, but do we really need Nicolas Cage cameo from something that never got made?
Well, and they did this weird thing that they called like the Chronodome or whatever in that movie, where it's like kind of like the Flash running on the cosmic treadmill, and he like looks around and he sees all this stuff. And they had a scene straight out of Justice League with Henry Cavill, and it's all CGI, and it's like, okay, like, I know that there was that rumor that Henry Cavill was originally in that movie. I'm like, you could have just put him in there just to stand there for that one scene, like it's just.
In the whole world colliding, was like, that's an incursion, looks like,
Yeah. I think I have in this movie. I was like, it's basically incursions. Just think incursions when you watch the end of this.
Incursions, cannon points, whatever you want to call them. So yeah. Andy, have you seen Handsome Words yet?
What? Say that again?
Have you seen Handsome Words yet? I'm like,
he's like blurted some out. I was like, what did he say?
I had coffee today, so sorry about that. I'm like,
no. No, you know what? It was supposed to be on Paramount Plus. Is it on Paramount Plus?
Yes. Yeah. I watched it earlier last week. I watched it with my son again.
It's not on Paramount Plus here. So, okay. So the answer is no, I haven't seen it. But if you want to talk about it, go for it.
Earmuffs. Okay, so there's a next installment. So Sci-Fi Fantasy Gazette spoke with the producer Lorenzo di Bonaventura, and basically said, it's a good question. We're about to start a script when the writer's strike happened, so our hope was we were going to have for 2025. This is for like the next installment, the sequel to it. But I think the longer the strike goes on, the more it puts it in 2026. So basically, we had Bumblebee with Haley Stanfield, and then Rise of the Beast, which is the next installment, and then now we're going to have this other installment come out. But here's this thing. Okay, so I'm sorry about this, Andy. I feel bad. The very end of the movie, the main character, the Hood, he's playing the Hood, Anthony Ramos, he goes in for a job interview, goes in this warehouse, we pulled in the back. It's a dude talking to him about, we're taking care of your brother's medical stuff for life. He's all taken care of. He helps save the world. We know about your friends, and then kind of peeks behind the curtains. It's G.I. Joe. So basically, he's being recruited by G.I. Joe at the end of the movie. So what's going to happen is so they're building the whole universe here where they're going to team up. And I believe was there comic or cartoon stuff that's happened? I got to go back and check. I can't remember. But it's going to be tied to other G.I. Joe projects. And he was asked this. He goes, here's the answer. I don't know the second question's answer because we haven't gotten that far. But like every other Transformers movie, the ingredients of the movie is humans and robots get together to stop the villain. The Joes are going to be part of the ingredients now. We're not going into the Joe world. They're coming into our world. So if you think about it that way, I think that's the closest thing to the plan we have. We now have to figure out the plots we want to do, etc. But they'll be an active participant, if you would, a few of the characters in trying to stop the bad guy. So it's also reported that Mask will be part of the franchise as well.
Do you know what this reminds me of? In Toy Story, I guess it might be Toy Story 2. At the beginning of Toy Story 2, there's like a movie playing out, and like I think Ham is like the villain, and then all these basically just different toys just coming from anywhere. And basically, what you get is you zooms out, and it's Andy playing with his toys, and he's made like a movie about the thing. That's basically what's happening, but just with blockbuster movies. Like there's some like big kids that are just ramming all their toys together like this, and they're making a movie. They're going, G.I. Joe's, Transformers, Mask, just ram them together. There's going to be turtles, and it's going to be throwing everything in this.
Thundercats.
Oh look, there's Lion-O's turned up, and He-Man, and you just go, what is going on?
But if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Think back to the Michael Bay ones, right? Josh Duhamel's character, the military. That was kind of, it seemed like a clue to it, because he was a constant, I believe, all of them. Even when Shia LaBeouf got switched out for Mark Wahlberg, he was in the later ones as well. So it's almost like they've kind of built that kind of concept in the previous franchise, but they're actually going to we're going to actually say G.I. Joe, not just the military, and work together with the Transformers. So I thought it was pretty cool. The movie, I liked it. We finally got a proper Unicron live action, not the Michael Bay one where it's coming out of Earth and it looks craptastic. We actually got a proper, the rings, devouring worlds, even the music. When you see in the movie when he's talking to Megatron and the whole music he does when he's eating planets, that sound, they have the proper sounds, the proper Unicron. The only thing we didn't see was him transform out of the planet into his robot self. So
It's just a movie about the 80s toys.
I'm all for it.
Oh yeah,
it's so funny though. But they're willing to do something like that, but they won't give us the live action Captain Planet movie. Like,
hey, Donatello could be on that one.
He'll be in there. Trust me. Oh look, Captain Planet's coming in.
Yeah. I want to see a Thundercats movie. I don't mind seeing that.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll. I don't know.
It's a good question.
The Robbis. I don't know.
That's crap.
He's got to play. He's got to play Panthro. Surely the Rock.
Alf. So I have some Alf news. Alf. Yes. So Ryan Reynolds doing some good work out there. Alf will return on Ryan Reynolds' Maximum Effort channel on Saturday, July 29th. The reprise through a partnership between Reynolds, Alf, creator Paul Fusco, and the recently rebranded Shout Studios will not consist of full-length episodes, but instead the channel will air old Alf episodes alongside Alf-centric shorts highlighting brands like Mint Mobile and Hims. Ryan Reynolds says, at Maximum Effort, we love taking risks and blurring the lines between shows and sponsorship because we believe both can be equally entertaining. Besides my irrational love of Alf growing up, one of the reasons we licensed this show was precisely because Paul, Shout Studios, and our intrepid brand partners wanted to plot with us to bring Alf back to life. So...
I thought you was going to say Alf was going to turn up in the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover movie. Interesting.
Comment here. Yo, I got a recommendation from the YouTube chat. So another new listener, looks like. Welcome. I got a recommendation for this channel on John Rocha's Loki 2 breakdown. I'm going to sub. What does I'm going to sub mean?
He's going to subscribe.
Oh, subscribe. Sorry. Durr.
I thought it was earlier there. It's later over here. It's like it's tomorrow already.
Yeah, it's like almost 7 o'clock here. Yeah, we're almost done. Bear with me. Actually, we are done with one more last thing in news. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hey.
So Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon Movies are developing a sequel to Mutant Mayhem. So the movie that's coming out, this week? Or it is already out? I think this week it's coming out.
It was out on Monday, I thought.
Yeah. They're also playing... Yeah, it's out? Okay. I guess my son is see. He wants to go see that. And they're planning a 2-season series that will serve as a bridge between the films. The spin-off series titled Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will appear on Paramount+. Also, Mutant Mayhem is in the same universe as the animated series.
Oh, nice.
So
interesting.
I've heard good early reports about this animated movie. It's supposed to be quite good.
I'm looking forward to it. Who doesn't want to see more turtles out there? I thought the last series of movies was pretty good too. I'm not the biggest fan of some of the casting choices, but as far as the turtles and Splinter and Shredder and all that kind of stuff, and Krang, it's all good for me. So
yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I know it was some Michael Bay special, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind it. I thought it was in keeping with the Turtles, and yeah, I thought it was quite cool.
I actually love those Nickelodeon movies that they did. I think in there 2 of them where they did the live action. I don't know why, but that downhill mountain scene with the turtles where everything is just pure chaos. I feel like that just embodies what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are. Just perfectly. There's one scene in that where Donatello is there's a drop in 34 seconds. And Raph's okay, great. Are you going to tell us the weather next, Donnie? While all this just craziness is happening. It's just so funny.
I was a huge fan of the Turtles when I was a kid. When I was really little, I had a Turtles fan club that me and my mates were involved in, and I used to run it out of my loft. It was awesome. And I remember when I was fortunate enough to come over to the States and go to Orlando, go to Disneyland and MGM Studios and Universal. And there was the turtles, but hanging out the back of the van, and I was chasing them around, trying to get their autographs in my little book. It was brilliant. I have to show you some pictures the next time I get them.
I'm gonna say something probably kind of controversial here, but I don't think I've ever seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon. Maybe a couple episodes, but when I was a kid, they had the second cartoon that came out in the early 2000s, and that one was just. Oh, it was so amazing. I fell in love with the Turtles because of that cartoon. And it was so good. I still love that cartoon to this day.
like Jorian said, how can you not like the Turtles?
Oh, just
good. That's good, clean family fun right there.
I was just curious. It's the same thing.
Oh, one more from the YouTube chat from Ski Free EXE is the OG cartoon is pure childhood in the first movie. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was the first movie that they had Vanilla Ice in, or was the second one?
Say that again, Joe.
Vanilla Ice, was it the first movie or the second one he was in?
I think that was the first movie.
Yeah, I think it might have been the first one. Yeah, those suits were amazing.
Yeah,
they were so cool. Those suits were brilliant when you think they were real. You know, we see so far too many computer generated effects. When you can make suits like that were awesome.
Oh, it says, not the first. He says not the first. So it was the second one. I think it was The Secret of the Ooze, which is the second one. And then the first one was Casey Jones. Yep, Casey Jones in the first one. I like that April O'Neil better than the recent movies. I like that April O'Neil better. That just seemed like a more grounded Turtles movie than what we saw with the more recent one. But yeah, Casey Jones was in there. We got Splinter, Shredder. We didn't get Bebop and Rocksteady in that
in the second one. You did.
Yeah,
the second one you did. They got mutated in the second one, didn't they?
He also says the same thing with those movies. Yeah, those ones are classic. I gotta go watch those again now. My son.
Yeah, I might
go see those. Yeah.
Brilliant, good show. Lots and lots of discussion there. We've covered loads of different things. We had a couple of new listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Jorian, where can they find us?
Live stream, you can find us on the Facebook page. You can find us in one of our Facebook groups. You can find us on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Kicks, and on Trovo. Except if you're watching on Twitter, we don't see the chat, so make your way over to the other platforms. And then we're also on Instagram and TikTok. Everything is Comics Evolved except for Twitch and Instagram, Instagram and TikTok, where it's Comic Evolved. So
awesome.
And thank you, Ski Free. Says good stuff. Always love to find new content. Keep up the good work. Thank you for joining. We always love to hear that feedback. And hope you'll see us on our next show. What are we doing next, by the way? Secret Invasion is done. We're gonna have a show next weekend.
We are going to have a show next weekend. I'm sure we'll come up with some engaging content for these guys to listen to. So, but for now, we'll see you next time. Take care.
See you guys.